Michigan, Isabella County, City of Mount Pleasant.
Thank you. Commissioner Roden?
City of Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, State of Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Gillis?
Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Alsager?
Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Tolis?
City of Mount Pleasant, Isabella County, State of Michigan.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Perschbacher?
City of Mount Pleasant, Isabella County in the state of Michigan.
Thank you. And Mayor Joseph?
City of Mount Pleasant, Isabella County in the state of Michigan.
All are present and accounted for.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Tonight, we do not have any proclamations or presentations. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda tonight?
Mayor, staff has 2 items we would like the commission to consider adding to the agenda, please. One is a resolution related to streamlining the process for poverty exemptions. And the second is a request to set a special meeting for a training session. So if the commission is willing, we would like to add those as a new item 11 and 12 on the agenda.
Is there any objection to adding these to the agenda tonight? Okay, I see no objection, so items 11 and 12 will be added to the agenda. Any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, at this point, I will open up the public input on agenda items. At this time, members of the public, if you're joining us by Zoom, you can hit the participants button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and then on the right-hand side, it should say raise hand, and you can click that and I can recognize you for public comment. If you're joining us by telephone, you can hit *9 and it will raise your hand just the same. And I ask that you state your name and your address when recognized for public comment. You have 5 minutes to address the commission. The first hand we have up tonight is Caleb Carey. And so I recognize Mr. Carey.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My name is Caleb Carey. My address is 214 South Pine Street, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I'd like to speak about the correspondence that my mother wrote to the City Commission. The recreational regulatory ordinance requires the applicant with conditional authorization to submit the Step 2 facilities license application to the state within 30 days of being granted authorization. The Step 2, in case you guys aren't too familiar, is pretty much just blueprints and business plans for operation. And the state requires that an applicant must be ready for inspection within 60 days upon submitting a Step 2. So the state doesn't want a Step 2 being sent unless the business is ready for open. But the ordinance mandates this timeline. But since it is now February, there's a couple of applicants that are not fully licensed. There is one. So if they submitted it within 30 days of conditional authorization, that means they did not meet the state's 60-day deadline. If the timeline is not satisfied, city must go on to the next applicants according to the ordinance. On December 14th, the report was issued to the committee about both medical and recreational marijuana. It recommended possibly to the city commission to consider removing this timeline barrier, or this timeline hurdle, I guess you could say. It was stated that this timeline is impractical as far as the reasonings, but the truth is there's already a business that has met this timeline. They're open, they're fully licensed. My business can meet this timeline. Therefore, I disagree that it is impractical. It is just impossible for the applicant they chose. Therefore, if you follow the ordinance, you must go to the next applicants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Next, we have Teresa Turner with us.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
I have a comment not about the agenda tonight, but about last week's meeting. Is that allowed now?
I believe that would be appropriate during the final public comment where public can comment on anything to the city commission.
Okay, I'll wait until then. Thank you.
I believe we have Bob Bush with us tonight.
All right, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, well, I would like to thank you very much for giving me the platform right here. I'd like to thank Commissioner Tolis and Commissioner Gillis for bringing up what I think is number 9 on the agenda. And this is about Commissioner Perschbacher and an image that was posted on Facebook. And this really brings up an opportunity for us to talk about racism and white supremacy in our community. And I really want to thank Commissioner Tolis and Commissioner Gillis for bringing this up. I mean, we've seen it at our restaurants with Cheers recently. It was reported on that. I know that I've heard it all over town, racism and things like that. And the imagery that we saw was all over, the bullying truck rallies that we saw, and also at the insurrection. So to say that this blue line flag, the image that was presented by the Commissioner Perschbacher, is about showing support to law enforcement is just too cute by half. I mean, we've seen it. It has been adopted by treasonous insurrectionists, and we really need to not vote to censure Commissioner Perschbacher, and not it really shouldn't even be brought up at the city commission right now. And so I just would like everybody, if there is a question brought up to censuring the Vice Mayor Perschbacher, that is voted down, because we don't want to be known as a community that cottons to white supremacists and racism. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Steve Sweeney with us tonight.
Hello, everyone at City Commission. This is Steve Sweeney. My address is 1405 Greenbrier Street, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. And I'd also like to talk about the item 9 on the agenda, the censure vote on City Commissioner Amy Perschbacher. I am against the censure. I would also like to, say that I agree with Bob Bush's comments that the blue line American flag has been taken over by white supremacists. I don't know that it ever really held the meaning that some people think it does today, because it was brought out during the Black Lives Matter to basically be a counterpoint to that. And I don't think City Commission really needs to comment on Facebook posts anyway. That's just a rabbit hole that I don't think anyone wants to go down. But anyway, thank you for giving me a voice and hearing me. And I'm against censuring of Amy Perschbacher. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Sweeney. Dustin Kuntz is the next name I see.
Hi there. Yeah, Dustin Kuntz. I actually represent Vice Mayor Perschbacher. And as you might guess, I'm here to comment about agenda item.
Oops. I apologize, Mr. Kuntz. That was my mistake. I was trying to lower a hand and I hit the wrong button. If you could please start over, I'm sorry.
Sure, yeah. Dustin Kuntz here. I am Vice Mayor Perschbacher's attorney. And as you might guess, I'm here to comment about agenda item number 9. On April 27th, 1977, David Goldberger took a life-changing phone call. On the other end of the line was a man by the name of Frank Collin. David Goldberger, you might guess by the name, was Jewish, and he was also an attorney from the American Civil Liberties Union, or ACLU. Frank Collin was the head of the, or at least a representative of the National Socialist Party of America, or the American Nazi Party. Frank was trying to demonstrate in the village of Skokie, Illinois, first on May 1st, which is ironic because that's Law Day here in America, where we celebrate the things that make us uniquely American, and we celebrate the rule of law and not living in communist or dictatorship type of government. The May 1st thing didn't go so well for him, and we'll get into that in a minute. And so then he also wanted to try July 4th, also a day that sticks out for obvious reasons. And he was trying to demonstrate with his fellow Nazis in Skokie, Illinois. At the time, Skokie was a village of 70,000 people, and about 40,000 of them were Jewish, and hundreds, if not thousands of them, were Holocaust survivors. The village of Skokie, for obvious reasons, did not want Nazis marching down its streets, and so they got an injunction from a trial court in Cook County, Illinois. And then they quickly passed some resolutions that said, no, you can't wear swastikas here, and if you want to publicly demonstrate, you got to post a $350,000 bond, things like that. And the lower court granted the request for an injunction, keeping the Nazis off their streets. And then an appellate court in Illinois decided not to expedite things and left the injunction in place. And then the state Supreme Court did the same thing. And within a month and a half of the first bit of litigation, this, as they say, made its way up to the United States Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court entered an order that didn't say a whole lot. It's like one paragraph long, but it also says quite a lot. And what it says is that the village of Skokie and these Illinois courts violated Frank Collins' First Amendment rights and the National Socialist Party of America's First Amendment rights. Nazis get to march down the streets of a village that is over half Jewish and has hundreds of Holocaust survivors. That's what freedom of speech means in the United States of America. That we protect that, that we show we are not Nazis because we let the Nazis do this kind of thing. So let's talk about Amy and the Facebook post. And I'm not going to get into the details of what she meant by it and how it's being taken. People are going to take it however they take it. Some people think she's saying all cops are Nazis. We know that's not what was meant, and there are emails to the commission talking about all that. We're not going to get into it. Let's just assume the worst possible way this could be construed is the truth, that Vice Mayor Perschbacher is saying all cops are Nazis. My question is, so what? There's a remedy for that, and it's called the democratic process. It's called an election. If any commissioners don't like it, find someone to campaign against her. Speak out, hold town halls, whatever. That's your right. But to censure her is to censor her. And that is the most un-American thing I can imagine. If you disagree with what that Facebook says or what you think it says, the remedy is not to use your authority as a city commissioner to punish her and to punish her expression of speech. I don't even think the city charter gives you the authority, even if you wanted to, because this is even an ethics matter. But putting that aside, again, fundamentally what we have here is the vice mayor exercising her right to free speech on her personal Facebook page, and now the commission bowing to the whims of a mob and taking up the issue and deciding whether to punish her. And if you want to support the police and what the police are here to protect, your vote it's easy. It's voting against censorship and censorship. Thank you.
Next, we have Jessica Jernigan with us. Jessica, if you can hear me, are we able to unmute Jessica?
I think I just unmuted. Is that correct?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm Jessica Jernigan. I live at 302 East High Street. I am here also to talk about agenda item number 9 tonight. I happen to be one of the community members who immediately understood the context surrounding the image that Vice Mayor Amy Perschbacher shared on her private Facebook page. I know that there are people for whom the thin blue line flag represents support for law enforcement, but I also know, as we've heard tonight, that the thin blue line flag has been co-opted by critics of the Black Lives Matter movement. And I know that this symbol has been embraced by white supremacists, including, as Bob pointed out, those who participated in the assault on the Capitol that have left 2 law enforcement officers dead and several injured. In fact, just within the last week or so, the chief of police for the University of Wisconsin banned police officers from displaying or wearing representations of the thin blue line flag precisely because of its connections with white nationalism and other dangerous anti-democratic ideologies. Ms. Perschbacher has apologized for offending community members. She said that she could have expressed her views more clearly, and she has affirmed that she was speaking as a private citizen, not a representative of the city of Mount Pleasant. As a resident of the city of Mount Pleasant, I am satisfied that her response has been more than sufficient, and I do not believe that censure of any kind is warranted or would be beneficial to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Next, we have Toby Thomas Bush.
Hi, my name is Toby Bush. I live in 900 Appian Way, and I am here as well to state my stance against the censure of Amy Perschbacher. I, along with the 4 people who went in front of me, I agree with them all. I especially appreciate Steve Sweeney's point of how saying the Blue Lives Matter flag and the Blue Lives Matter movement was just to counteract the Black Lives Matter. It was the argument against, and that is concerning at the start. But the image that Perschbacher posted on her Facebook page, her personal Facebook page, not as a representative, is very interesting to keep in mind to just ask her questions as a community of who associates. Who, along with the Blue Lives Matter people, associate with what that flag represents underneath the Blue Lives Matter flag in that photo, because there is a large amount of people who associate with, Nazi intentions, Nazi ideals. So, and we have seen throughout, the past few weeks with the past few months, with the insurrection at the Capitol and the Trump supporters who associate with these, racist and fascist ideals. And I think it's very important to not censor Perschbacher, because it's important to always question and make sure that your communities are being safe and supportive and tolerant of everybody that you live with, because that is needed for a good society. That is all I really have to say. Yet again, I am against the censorship of Amy Perschbacher.
Thank you, Toby. Next, we have Eric Chirkover.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. I'd just like to briefly add my voice to what I'm happily seeing is a growing chorus of people who are supporting Commissioner Perschbacher and hoping that number 9 on the agenda, I hope that it does not result in any kind of censure. As others have pointed out, probably more eloquently than I can, the commissioner was expressing an opinion privately as a private citizen, as is her constitutionally given right. I'd also like to just, and this is something that just occurred to me, so I'll point out, it's very, very easy for a group of anonymous people on Facebook to complain bitterly about something that they read or see. It's quite a different story for those of us who live in this community and are engaged in this community and care deeply about civil rights and basically, well, all the things that make a community good, to call in and participate, which is what I think I'm happily seeing a lot of us are doing. And I think it's important to take that into consideration, the fact that those of us who are supportive of the commissioner's right to express herself are now expressing ourselves. And those who have been critical in very, very unfair ways on Facebook or any kind of other social media are currently standing mute. So I'll leave it at that. By the way, I also speak for my wife, Xantha Karp, who is a biology professor here in Mount Pleasant. So that's two citizens who would like to basically voice their opposition to any sort of censure for someone who simply expressed themselves as is their right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Next, we have John Dinsey.
Am I unmuted?
Yep, we can hear you, John.
Okay. Well, I'd like to echo the sentiments of a good number of people tonight. I won't go into repeating some of the things that have been said. I'd just like to say that I witnessed the events of January 6th by watching C-SPAN as things were happening and found them very disturbing. And I saw firsthand white supremacists carrying the blue line flag. And I think Commissioner Perschbacher is reacting to this kind of bizarre scene by placing on Facebook, what she did, which was a sentiment that I think is shared by a large majority of people in Mount Pleasant. I guess my basic point here about, opposing any kind of motion to censure is that one of the jobs of a city commissioner is to express vocally and otherwise through Facebook the sentiments of the citizens of the town or the community that she represents. And I feel that she was doing that with her Facebook post. And in that regard, as a representative of the community, it was totally appropriate. And so that's basically what I wanted to say. And I'm glad to add my voice to a number of people in expressing this sentiment. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next, we have Miss Pat Heitman.
Hi there. Thank you for taking my call. I am also, my name is Pat Heitman. I'm from 911 Elizabeth Court here in Mount Pleasant. I also am expressing my sentiments about agenda number 9 on the agenda that you have tonight. I would put my voice with the rest of the people who have stated emphatically that censoring only brings a name for our community, only brings more strife for our community. And I, as a private citizen, and the quote was listed as on a private citizen's Facebook page, that's their right to express and place and take a stand on our community. It it behooves me that you, this would even be an agenda item and that this would be talked about. I thought we were a community that could express ourselves. I thought we could say, and all 7 of you could say and have a voice. That's why you ran for city commission. That's why you're there to take a stand on our community and make it better. This is just ridiculous that you're even spending time on censoring somebody for a post that was on their private Facebook page. So I would be against censure. I would be against taking away somebody's rights. I would be against putting forth even any effort in this. I'm just ridiculous that I have to call in and make this comment. I am happy to have somebody take a stand. I am happy to have our city commissioners be in the moment and express themselves about what's happening in our world. I don't want it to happen here. I do not want, I support the police. I work for the police. I work at the jail. I support Commissioner Amy Perschbacher and would be against censure. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Next, we have Sarah.
There we go. Hi. I'm not sure whether my voice can be counted or not. I think I'm technically in Union Charter Township, but live in Mount Pleasant. On 4439 Sterling Way in Mount Pleasant. But I also vote to not censure Commissioner Perschbacher. I have nothing new to say. I think that it's I think my opinions have been stated by other citizens. Thank you.
Sarah, can you provide us your full name, please, before?
Oh yeah, sorry. Sarah Prussing, Prussing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Manager Ridley, did we have any emailed comments on agenda items?
Let me check. No, Mayor, we don't have any emails that came in.
Okay. I see Maureen Eke is raising her hand for public comment.
Hi, good evening again. I'm sorry, I thought I had raised my hand earlier, but apparently I didn't click it hard enough. But good evening again, and it is good to see all of you here, and I'm happy that you're all well. 2 weeks ago, I approached you about this issue, and I made some suggestions. I have spent the past 2 weeks thinking about this particular issue. I have visited the city's website and read the comments. Majority of the comments on that website are comments from people who do not live here in Mount Pleasant. That troubles me. In other words, they're dictating what we have to do. But what troubles me especially is that the city commissioners are spending an inordinate amount of time to talk about this issue. 2 weeks ago, I indicated that Commissioner Vice Mayor Perschbacher posted that comment on her private Facebook. What made it public, what threw it into the public domain is the city responding to a comment she made on her private Facebook. And now you're talking about censuring her. For me, a commissioner who pays attention or draws attention to a social problem in the society that might have tremendous impact on us, I would think is trying to call attention to something that we need to address. At no time in that particular post did I see her say, or does she say, I'm talking about the Mount Pleasant police. Even the comment itself, the pointing to the thin blue line flag suggests that other people have appropriated it. If this is a flag that is so sacred to the police, and other people have appropriated it to do horrible things. Shouldn't law enforcement people be actually irritated? If we should be angry, if somebody should be screaming, they should be screaming that some ugly people have taken a symbol that they see as sacred and are now using that particular symbol to do horrible things, to even kill their own members. And here we are saying it's, condemning somebody who is saying, look at what they have done to this, that beneath this, somebody is doing nefarious things. We're faced with tremendous problems. I see Confederate flags flying through Mount Pleasant. We need to talk about that. If she points that out now, should we then go and censor her also? I do think that we have a problem. As I said 2 weeks ago, I think this is a moment for us to reflect and to use this moment to have a very deep conversation about this particular issue. Are there racist cops? Of course there are. Ask any Black person, what do you think we're thinking? I am a Black woman who lives here. I worry. I work with some cops, but for me, it's also a problem when I think of what might happen to me if I called a cop. Should I call a cop or should I not call a cop? The thin blue line is supposed to represent security for us, but somebody is using it to do unsafe things, to hurt people. How do we then begin to trust this particular symbol if we don't talk about it? What she's done is simply say, take a look at this. Let's have this conversation. And we're going to punish her for calling our attention to something that we ought to be doing ourselves. I don't think that it is the right thing to do. She does have civil rights. It is a civil rights infraction to sort of silence her because she posted on her private Facebook something that is public. It wasn't as if she created it. It is public, we know that. So like my friends or other residents who have called earlier and opposed this, I do oppose this sanction. Please do us proud and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Next, we have Desiree Woodworth.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. My name's Desiree Woodworth. I live at 214 North Arnold Street, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I'm also calling about agenda item number 9. I believe everybody said some really wonderful things today, and I don't want to continue reiterating the same point, but I would like to offer this up as an opportunity for all of the commissioners to consider how they are doing this anti-racism work themselves, and maybe what kind of work they still have to do. I find that if this post made you that uncomfortable, that maybe there's a lot of work that you have to do, and then it is your duty to do that work now. So I would say that I am totally against censoring Commissioner Amy, sorry. And that's basically all I have to say.
Thank you, Desiree. Teresa Turner is with us now.
Okay, I'm Teresa Turner from 608 South Kinney, and I did have the comments I had related to the last meeting, but it really, as I hear people speak, it ties into what's going on now. So I'm going to go ahead and make my comments. So I was not able to attend the entire meeting on January 25th, but I did watch the recording of the meeting. And my comments are related to the proceedings of the last meeting. Toward the end of the meeting, Commissioner Toles made a statement that made me cringe. His comment alluded to the fact that the police department has received only 4 written complaints, and none of those was related to race. He went on to say there are no race-related problems. I'm not sure if Commissioner Toles meant within the police department or if he meant within the city of Mount Pleasant. Regardless, if bias assessment is based on the existence of written reports only, the city or city departments are not using a wide enough lens to monitor the existence of racism. As a person of color who has lived in this community for over 40 years, I can tell you many overt instances of racism occur that are never reported to anyone. Furthermore, having conversations about race and bias are needed to promote understanding and healing. Discussions about race and bias are not meant to be divisive. I hope the commission follows up on Professor Ickey's suggestion to host an open forum to address some of the concerns related to the Facebook post and the aftermath. And finally, I wanted to point to the City Commission's peacemaking proclamation and cite a couple of quotes from that proclamation. One was, peacemaking contributes to a more cooperative and just way in which we live together. The other is, peacemaking honors and respects others and their differences as well as ourselves. And the bottom line too, I support the previous callers. I do not believe there should be a censure. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. At this time, it doesn't appear anyone else has their hand up for public comment on agenda items, so I will close the public comment section at this time. And we will go into receipts of petitions and communications.
Mayor, in this part of the agenda tonight, we have the monthly report on pending items, as well as the monthly report on citizen complaints received that were in the packet. And then there were 5 written communications that were received prior to the City Commission agenda packet going out that were included in the public packet. And those 5 communications were from Jared Morningstar, as well as Amanda Morningstar, neither of which provided a local address. And then Mr. Bruce Kilmer sent a communication. And then Mr. Bob Bush of 422 South Washington sent a communication. And then, as mentioned during the public comment, Eric Turcover and Xantha Karp of 318 East Cherry sent a communication. And then over the weekend, 3 more written communications were received. And it's been our practice during these virtual meetings to read those communications that came in after the packet was sent out, since it's difficult for you to get copies of them and for the public to know what was received. So I'm going to read those 3 communications for you now. The first one came in on Friday, and it was from a gentleman named, I believe it's a gentleman named Rorick Brooks. And his communication says, "Greetings all. My name is Rorick Brooks and I live at 618 East Gaylord Street in Mount Pleasant. I'm writing to comment on the recent controversy that has arbitrarily risen around Vice Mayor Amy Perschbacher's social media post criticizing the thin blue line flag. First, I'm disgusted with the demeanor of Petro Tolis towards his colleagues over a matter that has been incredibly overblown in every way, starting with purposefully and dismissively mispronouncing Amy's last name multiple times, even after correcting himself. Then, in the midst of publicly admonishing and infantilizing Amy and Olivia while accusing them of playing politics, he himself chose to play politics and blatantly sow more discard. Virtue signaling left and right, saying we absolutely don't have a problem with racism in Mount Pleasant. I hereby call for Mr. Tolis to resign and or face legal punishment for his offensive words and demeanor and blatant disdain for his legally elected colleagues. Do you see how ridiculous and hyperbolic that sounds? All pointed barbs aside, please, for the love of God, stop this nonsense. Everyone who is writing in or making comments condemning the vice mayor and telling her to resign, shame on you. The vice mayor made her position clear when she graciously apologized and clarified her statement. And yet this political circus still rolls on, flames being fanned by purely partisan politics. I can read beneath the lines on that just fine. Please stop this now and do what you're elected to do rather than squabbling over this junk. Also, anyone calling for Olivia to resign over a virtual like, give me a break. What kind of weird dystopian world are you wanting to reside in? Seriously think about it for 2 seconds. I would be willing to bet that every single one of you has liked something that could be considered controversial on the internet. If that is grounds for legal action and losing your position, just big, big yikes over here. I'd like to remind everyone that the thin blue flag is absolutely, unequivocally not shorthand for law enforcement and never ever should be. It is not an official symbol. It is a symbol co-opted by misguided civilians, and even more alarming is that it's often paired with the Punisher logo, which is essentially advocating for the unchecked use of deadly force. The term may have been somewhat popularized in the 50s, but was never a large part of the public consciousness until recent years, in direct opposition to the Black Lives Matter movement. We all know what this means. It means that it has nothing to do with supporting police and everything to do with stifling dissent. That flag and blue line image is a disgrace, excuse me, and I believe only makes officers' jobs more difficult by further creating a divide along with strong and dangerous us versus them sentiment. It is being banned from use all over the place. Even as recently as last week, it was banned by the chief of police in Madison, Wisconsin. It is frankly a huge embarrassment to our town that this is even an issue and that a small but loud group of people are putting so much public support behind this image. And to the vice mayor's point, we all saw what the blue line flag really stands for on January 6th, while it was used to beat, maim, and kill, nothing but hate. One last quick point, I guess that more than half of this town still supports Amy Perschbacher and Olivia Simon. Stop trying to make officials resign that many of us folks voted for. If you try to negate our votes, there will be serious loud pushback. The second written communication that was received was from Janet Peace, and her communication says, "Good afternoon. I'm Janet Peace of 425 South Shepherd Road, Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I'm a Mount Pleasant resident, a CMU alumni, and I've been in the U.S. Army for 23 years. I'm writing today regarding Ms. Perschbacher's Facebook meme and the potential censure of her protected political speech, and I ask that my letter be read at the meeting. The meme that Ms. Perschbacher shared 1 week after right-wing extremists stormed the U.S. Capitol was clear to those that follow current events. The violent mob who overran our Capitol in support of a fascist dictator trying to overturn our democracy carried the thin blue line or Blue Lives Matter flag. They carried that flag while threatening and assaulting police, leading to the death and grievous permanent injuries of some of those police officers. This act made clear that the flag had nothing to do with supporting the police. The flag's use arose in 2014 in response to the Black Lives Matter movement. Just as the Confederate battle flag became a hate symbol when it was used to counter-protest civil rights, so has the blue flag became a hate symbol when it is used to counter-protest Black Americans asking not to be murdered by the government agents. The meme showed that by pulling away the blue line in the flag, one could see what those flag bearers really are. Ms. Perschbacher should not be censured for her private political speech, which is protected by the First Amendment. Further, I have seen the criticism of this protected speech being compared to hate speech. That is not comparable. Blue lives don't exist. While the meme was clearly referencing the flag-bearing fascist mob and not the police, even in a misunderstood context, police are not free from criticism and are not a protected party. Occupation is a choice and should never be misconstrued as a protected class. Moreover, I was far more concerned with Petrotolis' statement at the last meeting that we don't have a race problem here. How dare he erase the lived experiences of our BIPOC community members? If anyone on that commission needs censure, it is he. And then the last written communication that was received was from Eric Jerkover and Xantha Karp. And it says, as you know, I recently sent an email on behalf of myself and my spouse, Xantha Karp, expressing support for Commissioner Perschbacher. My understanding is that the question of censuring Commissioner Perschbacher will be raised at tonight's meeting. We do not support censure. I will endeavor to log on to the meeting, but technology sometimes fails me. Should that happen, I was hoping that the contents of this email could be made a matter of public record. And obviously, Mr. Jerkover did sign on, so we did hear from him. The last item under the, I'm sorry, it's not the last item. The next item under the receipt of petitions and communications is correspondence that was received regarding the recreational marijuana ordinance. And I should note to the commission that I, on Friday, sent a response to Deb Carey in relation to that communication, because her inquiry was more about the administrative nature of the processing of those applications, and confirmed, as we did in December, that all of the current applicants are in compliance with the current recreational retailer ordinance. So that communication has been sent. And then the last item under the receipt of petitions and communications is the October minutes of the Traffic Control Committee.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. Items that are on the consent calendar have an asterisk next to them. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent calendar tonight? Seeing none, Manager Ridley, would you like to go through the consent calendar this evening?
Yes, we just have 3 items on the consent calendar this evening. The first one is we're recommending approval of the minutes of your regular meeting of January 25th. Secondly, we have a bid tonight for the overlays of our streets in the city. And this is something we do every 2 years. And we're recommending the low bid of Central Asphalt at an amount of $309,000. And I should note that there have been a couple of streets that have been changed in what will be overlaid this year since the operating budget was prepared. And it was mentioned in the memo that we've removed one street because as we did some further looking into it, the underlying concrete had some issues. So that street, which is Franklin, needs a reconstruction. And so another street from 2023 was moved up into the list. And then based on the favorable bid prices, we're recommending 2 additional streets be moved up to this year. And that would be Larry from Wisconsin to Brown and Gover from Broomfield to the dead end. And then the last thing that I would mention on that is we received the preliminary results of the stormwater study just last week. And some of the near-term recommendations in that study recommend that some enlargements of some storm sewers in the near term be planned on some of these streets that are currently planned for overlay. So we're going to further analyze that information because we would hate to overlay the streets and then realize we have to do something with the storm sewers under them. So we will evaluate that, and if any of those streets change, we will be sure to let you know. But there's a potential of just 3 blocks of those that we're concerned about at this time. But in order to get on the schedule for this year, we're recommending approval of the contract with Central Asphalt. And then the last item on the consent calendar is the approval of payrolls and warrants.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Commissioner Ronan.
Yeah, I apologize. They must have moved to the hand raising function or something. I had difficulty finding it. Is it too late to remove an item from the consent calendar? I'd like to remove item 6 for discussion.
I think we've done that before, so that's fine, I think, at this point.
I apologize for the slowness in my response.
Commissioner Gillis.
I was just going to move to accept the consent calendar as presented. So
Thank you, Commissioner Gillis. Commissioner Tolis.
Will support that.
So we have a motion and support to approve the consent calendar, which is items number 5 and item number 10. Any discussion? Commissioner Tolis, I see your hand is up.
Sorry.
Okay. Seeing no hands up for discussion, I think we go to a roll call vote on approving the consent calendar number items 5 and 10.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
and that passes 7-0.
Next on the agenda is item number 6 that was removed from the consent calendar. I apologize. I don't know where I cut off, but we're on item number 6. We did have an explanation by Manager Ridley, and so I would open the floor for a motion. Commissioner Ronan.
I guess I'll move to approve so that we discuss it. Is that what we do at this point?
Yes, we need a motion and a second to enter discussion. Commissioner Alsager.
I will second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the contract for the 2021 street overlay project with Central Asphalt. I will open up the floor for discussion. Commissioner Ronan.
I just, the Franklin Street piece bothers me a little bit. I've had a lot of members of the community complain about that street. It's probably the worst street in the downtown area. It's been that way for 12 years. It really doesn't look well. It presents a poor image for the community. I understand the need that it needs much more work than we're able to do. I'm wondering if there's some way to come to some understanding that it's not put off indefinitely, because it seems like that's what the city has done. At least for a dozen years, the road has needed work. And it seems like it's been put off indefinitely. Is there some way we can think about getting that done for the residents along that street?
I'll comment briefly and then I'll ask Jason Moore, our DPW director, if he has something to add. We're in the process right now of updating the capital improvement plan for your consideration, which would look at all of the capital projects for 2022 through 2027, I believe it is. And now that we know more information about the condition of that street, it would be considered when that plan comes to you in April, as far as where that fits in with the priorities for the other streets. But I'm going to ask Jason if he has anything additional to add to that. Jason, I just moved you into the panelist section. If you have anything more to add on that.
Well, not a whole lot to add other than the reason that it was taken off the overlay list was because it's a concrete road. And that's also sort of the reason that it's been in the condition that it's been in for so long. Concrete roads tend to stay in the same condition for a long time. And we haven't reconstructed it because it seemed to be still serviceable. But that will be a consideration in the next CIP.
Commissioner Ronan, your hand is still up. Did you have any more comments?
I did. So does that mean we should expect, the residents should expect that on the capital improvement plan that's coming forward? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, when we bring that forward to you in April, we will have a recommendation of what year that project should be undertaken as we bring that plan forward.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any other hands up for discussion. And so at this time, I believe we can go into a roll call vote on approving the bid as presented.
Okay. Commissioner Ronan, Yes. Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Commissioner Elsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
and Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
That passes 7-0.
Okay. Next on the agenda is item number 7, which is to consider allocation of funds for the 2021 parks projects. And if Manager Ridley would like to give a brief overview.
Yes, I'm sure the commission will remember that last June when we got to the point where the consideration of approval of the capital improvement plan was being considered, a decision was made to delay to future years a number of our capital projects due to the uncertainty of the economic impacts of the pandemic. And so we kept some projects in the current year budget that needed to be done, and we indicated the rest would be looked at as the capital improvement plan was reprioritized this spring. But tonight we are recommending that you consider an allocation of some capital improvement funds to 3 parks projects that have come up since that time. 2 of them are being recommended due to the increasing demand that we are seeing for outdoor activities in our parks area. And both of the projects are fairly easy to accomplish and require very little ongoing maintenance once that they are completed. And the third one is to prevent some additional deterioration that we are seeing at one of our existing parking lots. All 3 of these parks projects were discussed with the Parks and Rec Commission at their January meeting, and all 3 are also supported in the recently approved master plan. So the 2 that are outdoor activity related projects include, the first one is the conversion of 2 of the tennis courts at Island Park to be reconfigured into either 6 or 8 pickleball courts based on the increasing interest in this growing sport across the nation and in Mount Pleasant. And this project is estimated at a cost of $48,000. The second one is for additional outdoor fitness equipment along the completed Island Park Trail loop. And some of that equipment, you'll recall, was removed from the project due to the cost of the project last year. But this would add 5 additional pieces of equipment. And we are finding that the pieces of equipment that are currently there are well used. And so we could add 5 additional pieces at a cost of $22,000. And then the parking lot project is near the Mill Pond Park. And we have the northwest section of that parking lot that is starting to dip down near a sidewalk and gutters. And we have an existing permit with the state that we would be able to do that work under this summer. And it would prevent further damage to that parking lot. And this one has an estimated cost of $25,000. We believe there's adequate funds in the capital improvement fund to fund these 3 projects for a total amount of $95,000 without having a negative impact on projects that will be reprioritized as that capital improvement plan is looked at. So we're recommending that you consider an allocation of $95,000 for those 3 projects that could be completed this summer.
Thank you, Manager Ridley. Recognize Vice Mayor Perschbacher. You're muted.
I thought I unmuted myself before I moved. I moved to approve a budget amendment of $95,000 from the Capital Improvement Fund to the General Fund Parks Department for the Island Park tennis / pickleball courts conversion, outdoor fitness equipment, and Mill Pond Park parking lot repair.
Commissioner Elsager.
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go with the recommendation from staff for the park improvements. Commissioner Ronan.
I think it's a great idea. To be honest, I don't even think I know what pickleball is, but I am a tennis player. I assume there's been some data analysis done saying, hey, the tennis courts aren't being used at a rate that requires them. Is that a safe assumption?
Yes, the Parks Department did some of that, and some of the tennis courts are still being used, but the feeling was that the conversion of those two would not have that much of a detrimental impact on the ability for the tennis players.
Commissioner Elsager.
I'll say this comment for George's behalf, that I'm one of the pickleball players, and it's like small court tennis, and it's very fun for older adults.
That doesn't surprise me, Mary.
All right, seeing no other discussion, we can go to a roll call vote on approving the budget allocation for the 2021 parks projects.
All right, Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
and Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
That passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 8 is the receipt of the 2020 Tax Increment Finance Authority, or the TIFA Board, Marketing Incentives Report, and consider request for the 2021 funding. Manager Ridley?
Yes, in 2020, the City Commission approved an allocation of $40,000 from the Economic Initiatives Fund to the TIFA to be used for specific district marketing for the downtown. And it was believed that this would assist in growing the existing businesses while also attracting new businesses potentially to the downtown. And a commitment was made at that time to report back on those activities. And is at the beginning of this year when the request was made for the remaining $40,000, because you'll recall the original request was for a total of $80,000, and we encouraged them to split it over 2 years. Because of the pandemic last year, it would come as no surprise to you that some of the 2020 activities were curtailed, and only $16,257 of the originally allocated $40,000 was actually spent on those activities. And the communication in the packet from Downtown Development Director Michelle Sponseller outlines what that was spent on and the data we had available about some of the impacts of how that was spent. The TIFA board met in January to review the activity and is recommending that the $40,000 marketing and advertising plan that was originally put together for 2020 be implemented in 2021. Since the TIFA fund still has just over $23,000, I think it's $23,740 from the original allocation, the allocation for 2021 from the Economic Initiatives Fund would only need to be $16,260 to implement this plan instead of the original $40,000 that was first talked about. So we're recommending that you authorize the appropriate budget amendments to support the marketing and promotion plan that is proposed by the TIFA board that would spend $40,000 this year and only requires an allocation of $16,260 from the Economic Initiatives Fund.
Commissioner Alsager.
I move to have that budget amendment as presented.
And Commissioner Ronan?
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to allocate the funds for the TIFA board marketing. Any discussion tonight? Seeing none, I think we can go into a roll call vote on the budget allocation for the TIFA marketing plan.
Commissioner Tolis,
Yes.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
and Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
That passes 7-0.
Okay. Next on the agenda is item number 9, which is the receipt of information from city attorney regarding the scope of legal authority regarding the recent social media post and to consider next steps. At this time, I know Mike Homier, our city attorney, is with us. And so if Mike or have any overview comments.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. So you have a summary of what I think are legal options available to the City Commission. I want to make sure that I'm clear and choose my words carefully. I'm not making a recommendation on whether the City Commission should adopt a resolution of censure or take any other action. This is one of those times where this is the intersection of politics and issues of free speech. So it really is within the purview of the City Commission to determine what action, if any, it should take. That doesn't mean I'm endorsing any particular action. It simply means I've laid out sort of the options for the City Commission to consider should it want to do so. I will say that in terms of the speech itself, I've listened and heard a lot of comments on how this is a violation of free speech. And I would just say that I disagree with that analysis. It is not a violation of free speech. Just as individual members have a right of free speech, so too does the public body itself has a right of free speech and can express that free speech through the adoption of a resolution, should it choose to do so. Again, it's within the purview of the City Commission. It's not my decision to make for you. It is your decision as a public body.
And then Mayor, if I could add to that based on my cover letter, I indicated in the cover letter that the commission can either take no action this evening or the legal research showed that there were 2 potential options available. And in order to try to bring this matter to closure this evening, we did go ahead and lay out for you what those next steps would be if you desired to take any of those actions that were available to you. And as my cover letter indicates, the resolution that's provided is just a draft for your consideration. And as the letter says, you can make any changes to it. We just thought it would be easier for you to start with something to work from instead of having to wait to have something drafted. So if you go down that route, we just have a draft available for your consideration.
Thank you, Manager Ridley, and thank you, Mike. I recognize Commissioner Tolis.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to get one thing clarified here. On my response to the 3,900 calls that the city of Mount Pleasant responded to, the police department, I said that there was 4 complaints and none were race related. So you people can spin it any way you want to spin it. It is what it is. Go back and look at the minutes. But I expect that because I'm the only conservative on this commission. Getting back now to this, our options. I agree, Mr. Homer is our attorney, but I still think there's a city ethics ordinance under section 30.16, which is item E. We've now spent 50 minutes arguing about this and taking all these comments in. This is not a political platform, people. It's not. So now you've caused a disruption and disarray with the police department, the city commission, and the city of Mount Pleasant with a black eye. I didn't say anything about any of this stuff that Commissioner Perschbacher commented on. This is politics. That's not our job here, people. We're here to do the city's business, okay? And conduct business for the best interest of the city. And I will make a motion to accept option 1, the resolution to censure the vice mayor as presented.
Commissioner Gillis.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to censure Vice Mayor Perschbacher and to accept the draft resolution that was presented and drafted with Mike Homier, our city attorney. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to amend the draft resolution by excluding under therefore be it resolved items number 1 and items number 3. Commissioner Tolis and Gillis have your hands still up. I don't know if that's.
You want to eliminate, Mr. Mayor, item number 1?
Item number 1 and item number 3.
That we don't support the City of Mount Pleasant Police Department and the city law enforcement partners? Am I understanding that correct?
That would be item number 1 and item number 3. Okay. Commissioner Tolis's hand is down. Without any hands up, there needs Commissioner Gillis.
So let me make this clear. You want to take out from the resolution that we support the City of Mount Pleasant's Police Department and the city's law enforcement partners. And you want to take out of the resolution, we are committed to working together to develop clear expectations for social media use and resolve that a social media policy will be drafted for future consideration by the City Commission. You want?
Yes, that's correct. That is the motion that I made.
Okay. So the only 2 things left really in the resolution is that you want left in, if this motion were to pass, is we encourage elected city commissioners to consider the impact of their public expressions on the public trust in the city of Mount Pleasant. And we officially censure Vice Mayor Perschbacher for her social media posts, which lack context and therefore was interpreted by many as a lack of support for law enforcement, damaged the reputation of law enforcement in the city, and diminished the public's confidence in their elected officials. So out of the 4 bullet points, you want 2 of them taken out, and those are the only 2 you want left in.
That is my motion. Okay. Commissioner Alsager.
I think I understand the reasoning behind your motion, but I think in full fairness that since I'm not going to vote for the motion, I'm not sure that, well, I think I see your point that if the motion fails for censure, then we're still supporting the police because we haven't passed a motion, we haven't failed a motion that says we support them.
I guess at this time I would look for either a second or no second, and then if we get a second, we can go into discussion and I can explain further my motion.
I think, did I already second you?
I don't
Okay. All right. Well, I'll second your motion.
Okay, thank you. So just so we are clear where we're at, I have a motion on the floor to amend the draft resolution to exclude items number 1 and item number 3 from under the therefore be it resolved. At this time, I guess I'd like to explain just where my thinking is at. This resolution was drafted in by Mike Homier, our city attorney, and it's a draft. And so this is because we're a public body, we have to conduct our business in the public eye, and this is our chance to amend this motion or amend this resolution as we see fit. And I think that my reason behind excluding item number 1, is that I think that you can vote for or against the censure of Vice Mayor Perschbacher and still support our police department and our partner agencies. I think that it's a distraction in some ways from what the central issue is. And I think it's a little bit unfair to be included in the ultimate resolution. I feel the same similarly about item number 3, which is to develop a social media policy for the commission. And I feel that's not appropriate for this resolution, because if that's something the commission decides it wants to take up, it should be taken up separately. And so that's the basis for my motion. And so I see Commissioner Gillis has her hand up. So, oh, I'm sorry. So, Commissioner Ronan.
Yeah, with regard to transparency, I'd like to know who exactly was involved in drafting this, actually. Did the attorney do it by himself? Did the staff help? Did anybody help? I'd like to know who was actually involved.
As with all items that go in the agenda, it was drafted in coordination between Mike Homier and myself. Whenever there's a legal thing like that, we typically work together on those. So the two of us worked on the drafting of it based on what we heard from the comments of city commissioners and the initial request that went to Mr. Homier about the concerns with the ethics violation.
Thank you.
Commissioner Elsager.
Well, and Mayor Joseph, I think I appreciate your reasoning for separating those out and making it independent of whether or not the motion of censure passes or fails. So I'll be supporting your motion.
Commissioner Gillis. Lori, you're muted.
I'd like to make a statement on the first motion because I believe that we may have some changes.
I guess at this, for our proper rules of debate, we should be only talking about the amendment, and then we'll vote on the amendment one way or another, and then we'll go back to the original motion. And so if your statement is more broad, I would ask that you wait to address that.
Then I think I will continue because it is pretty broad.
Okay.
Might give some thought into why we're eliminating some of the main features. We live, lead, and work in a different age than we did 10 years ago when the commission's ethic guidelines were created. So today we all really rely heavily on social media to connect with our local and national leaders. While we have our right to freedom of speech, we are held to a higher standard than our peers due to the nature of our position. Currently, there are no outlines provided for appropriate online behavior for our commissioners. We need to establish guidelines that protect our freedom of speech, but also mitigate the risk of a sitting vice mayor making national headlines for an ambiguous political post on her Facebook page. I will support this censure in hopes we can learn from Vice Mayor's mistake and work to develop clear expectations for social media use. Further, due to the nature of the post, I think it is important in this resolution of censure to provide a clear statement of support to our law enforcement partners. So I think this amendment does not do justice to what we are trying to do with the censure. I hope we can move past this as a commission so we can focus on rebuilding trust in our community and working towards a brighter future for the city. But I will not be supporting these amendments to the censure resolution.
Thank you, Commissioner Gillis. I don't see any other hands up, and so at this time, oh, Commissioner Ronan.
No, I apologize. That was unintentional.
So at this time, I think it's appropriate to do a roll call vote on the amendment. The amendment was to eliminate items number 1 and 3 from under where it be resolved. And so I think it's pretty clear what those are at this point. So at this time, Chris, take it away.
Commissioner Elsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
No.
Commissioner Simon,
I'd actually like to clarify, are we voting on whether we're going to vote to pass the amendments, or are we voting to pass it with those amendments?
right now we're just voting on the amendment.
Okay, yes.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolis,
No.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yep,
I
sorry.
recluse.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm out of order. Just go down my list. Mayor Joseph,
Yes. And I guess for something I failed to clarify earlier, it is standard practice during a censure resolution that the person who is the subject of that censure is not part of the debate or the vote.
yes, my apologies. That
So
passes 4-2.
So that amendment is passed, and that takes us to the main motion as amended. I'll open up the floor for debate or discussion. Commissioner Alsager.
I think I've clarified my positions a little bit from 2 weeks ago, even, that I fully believe this is a First Amendment right to have your own opinion, and I will be not voting for censure.
Commissioner Tolis.
Again, as I say, this is a black eye on the city. This is not a platform for politics, which that's what it's turned into, people. Just face it. And this is ridiculous. We will not support the police department of the city and law enforcement partners. Are you people for real? Seriously?
Commissioner Ronan.
Yeah, no surprise. I'm not going to be supporting this either. I think it's a byproduct of the way it was dealt with and the legal advice and a variety of other things that were provided. So there's no way I would support this.
I just want to clarify my position. As I discussed last week, I think that the Facebook post by Vice Mayor Perschbacher was problematic in some ways. That it has caused a lot of people to be upset, and I know there are several different interpretations of that post, and I think it boils down to where you sit and how you see that, and I think the vice mayor's mistake in many ways was not adding more context to that post as she has explained, and I think that would have clarified her position better. It obviously has been a tough couple of weeks dealing with a lot of public who are either upset one way or another about how this has gone on and been handled. And my fear that what has overtaken the city commission is now really items that I think are for the public to discuss and debate. We should not be, as a board, I think, entrapped in drama that is happening outside of city business. I do think that the commissioners, as their role, have a responsibility to make sure that they represent the city well and represent their residents and the organization. And so obviously the hard part about that is everyone has a different idea of what that means. I didn't think that the post that Vice Mayor Perschbacher put on her Facebook page was something that I would put on my Facebook page. I certainly am probably more muted when it comes to social media, and that's my choice. I think that if we go down this road of censure tonight, that we put ourselves in a position of precedent where we'll be chasing Facebook posts or things said in the paper or hearsay that really isn't our place. The place is for the voters at the ballot box. And so I won't be voting to censure Vice Mayor Perschbacher tonight. And as I didn't want to vote for something also that said, or I didn't want to vote against something that says we support our police, because I do support our police department. I think I made that pretty clear in our last meeting. I think they work really hard. They're meeting expectations that are at the top of their class around the country in terms of the training that they get, the reforms that they have embraced, and they should be commended for that. I think it's really great work. And obviously we're in a divisive political time, and so it's tough for anyone who works in public service or who is in a local elected official to cut through some of these tough issues that are happening at the public or at the national arena, and how it relates to our own community. And so this is our, I think our first sort of run in with something that of this nature in a long time. And I think the city commission needs to stand by and not get itself into these sort of controversies as a habit. So that's kind of where I stand tonight. Commissioner Tolis, I see your hand is still up.
No, I just want to make one more comment. This is an embarrassment. It really is a total embarrassment. You embarrass me. This whole commission does. You don't support the city police. That's what we're basically saying, right? Right? Right. Thank you.
At this time, I don't see any other hands up, so we can go to vote on the motion as amended. The motion is to approve the censure resolution, and the amendment was obviously to take out items number 1 and 3. I just want to ask, is everyone clear on what we're voting on? Give me a thumbs up real quick. Okay. All right.
Commissioner Elsager,
No.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
No.
Commissioner Ronan,
No.
Commissioner Tolis,
Absolutely, yes.
and Mayor Joseph.
No.
That fails 2-4.
Okay. All right, next on our agenda is item number 11. And Nancy, if you would remind me, I can't remember which one came first out of the 2 items that were added.
I think I suggested that item 11 be the consideration of the resolution related to the streamlining of property exemptions.
That's right, thank you. I'll hand it over to you for a brief explanation.
As I indicated in the memo that I sent out on Friday, last week we received information from the State Treasury and the Michigan Municipal League regarding implementation of Public Act 253 of 2020, which addresses the process for property exemptions for property tax relief for residential properties. And under the new law, there's the ability for the City Commission to opt into a process whereby the exemptions can be in place for multiple years as long as certain criteria continues to be met. And in that option, the city assessor would have the authority to verify the eligibility criteria are still met each of the years And really what it does is it streamlines the process for the taxpayer so that they do not have to fill out a poverty application every year and appear before the Board of Review. So we've drafted the resolution for the City Commission to consider that would allow that more streamlined process. And again, I must reiterate, all the eligibility criteria still needs to be met. It's just the city assessor that does that review. And under the state law, if we want to opt into that streamlined process, it's necessary for the City Commission to take action on this opt-in resolution by February 15th. And so that's why we ask that this item be added to tonight's agenda. So we recommend you approve the resolution as presented to keep that process streamlined.
Okay. Commissioner Toles, I believe your hand is up from our last discussion item, and so I just want to make sure. Okay, Commissioner Alsager.
I will move to approve the resolution adopting the property exemption extensions as presented.
And Vice Mayor Perschbacher.
I will support that.
Okay. Any discussion? I just want to say I think it's a really great thing that I think the state, this is from the state coming down and making it easier, obviously in a pandemic, making it easier on those households. So at this time, I think we can vote.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Toles,
Yes.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
and Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
That passes 7-0.
Okay. And then item number 12, which is for our special meeting for training. I'll hand it over. I think Manager Ridley looks like she wants to say something.
Yeah, as you know, generally at the beginning of the year, we hold a special meeting for either team building or for some training related topic. And this year it was suggested that the training topic might be worthwhile on Robert's Rules of Order and how they can be used for more effective meetings. So we identified a trainer. Her name is Connie DeFord. She's a registered parliamentarian, used to be a city clerk in Bay City, I believe it was president of the Clerks Association for a number of years and did training for the city a couple of years back. And she's available. And so we worked last week to try to find a night that works for all 7 of you and for Ms. DeFord. And we found Tuesday, March 2nd at 7 p.m. works for that. And we asked that it be added to the agenda tonight so that we could lock that date in, not only on your calendars, but also on the calendar of the trainer so that we can make sure that we can get that taken care of. So we're recommending you set a special meeting for Tuesday, March 2nd at 7 p.m.
Commissioner Alsager.
I move we set that special meeting as presented.
And Vice Mayor Perschbacher.
I will support that.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I think we can go to a vote.
Commissioner Ronan,
Yes.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Gillis,
Yes.
Commissioner Toles,
Yes.
Commissioner Simon,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher,
Yes.
and Mayor Joseph.
Yes.
That passes 7-0.
At this time, oh no, I closed my agenda. Give me 1 second. At this time, we have announcements on city-related issues and new business. Commissioner Gillis?
Yeah, I'd just like to remind everyone that if you're interested in joining a committee, we have information on those available at mountpleasant.org under boards and commissions. Vacancies are listed there. And also in the application itself, it will give you a overview of what those committees business dealings that they tend to. So if you're interested in joining any of those committees or giving some of your time to public service, please look at that vacancy list. And I also want to encourage the community to continue mask wearing, social distancing, and washing your hands. We obviously do have a new variant in Michigan, mid-Michigan, and we are all struggling to keep up this continued mitigation, but know that through our efforts of wearing masks and social distancing and keeping within our pods, we have saved lives because we are doing the right thing here. So please keep doing what you're doing, and we will get over this and onto a new day. We just need you to continue to mask up and social distance and keep within your own family members. So I appreciate that, community members. Thank you.
Commissioner Elsager.
I just wanted to bring up something that maybe the rest of you also got by mail this week, but I got this mail from CMU from the Rome Care, and it's supported by the Michigan Health Endowment Fund and the CMU College of Medicine. And its focus is on giving access to medicine to older adults in their own homes. And I think it's a very good program that we would be good to support. Thank you.
Commissioner Ronan.
Yeah, I just like to second that. It really is a wonderful low-cost initiative for elderlies, particularly who are shut in. The physicians will go to your home, visit you. I was wondering, and I don't know if it's appropriate to mention here, but if this is if we could invite these people to a commission meeting just to sort of explain to the public what they're doing, and, because I think it is a fairly profound group. But we can talk about that later. But I think look it up online.
I just wanted to do my usual reminder that a lot of people are in the community are suffering a lot of economic and financial troubles, and that the need at our food banks and care store for clothing has been sort of record setting over the last year, and so if you have the time or the resources, consider volunteering and or donating if you can, and also as Commissioner Gillis noted, for people to just stay vigilant about wearing your mask and social distancing and making sure you sign up for the vaccine. I know that rollout has been much slower than many of us have probably wanted it to be, but I'm hearing better news is on the way in terms of acquiring more vaccine and being efficient with that rollout countrywide, and that we do need to be extra careful. The one of the new variants was located recently in the Grand Rapids area, and so be safe, stay well. Commissioner Toles.
Manager Ridley, did we get any other emails that came in late?
Let me double check. I don't have any other ones, Commissioner Toles.
I got a call this afternoon that two parties were going to send emails in and want them read on record. We did not receive anything at the city.
There's one email account that I don't have access to that sometimes those go to, but it was checked at 4:45 and there was nothing additional in that. If it came in after 4:45, I don't have access to it right now. But the ones that we have publicly on our electronic meeting, there's nothing additional in that one.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Gillis.
Yes, Thank you. I forgot to mention that our law enforcement were on the 9 and 10 news today for implementing a pilot program called RISE, where our police department initiates contact during a domestic dispute, and an advocate rides along with our officers to assist them in that call. So I want to commend them for their innovation in starting this pilot program, and I'm sure it will help community members along with our law enforcement in their duties. So good job, public safety.
Okay. Don't see any other hands up for announcements or new business. And so at this time, I'll open up the public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. And like before, if you're with us by Zoom, you can go to the bottom of your page and hit participants. And then there should be a raise hand button in the bottom. And if you're with us by phone, you can hit *9 for public comment. Manager Ridley, did we have any emailed comments on non-agenda items or agenda items?
No, Mayor, I don't have anything at this point.
All right, I don't see any hands up among our many participants. And so I will close the public comment section here on city-related issues. And we do have a work session tonight on the charter amendments proposed from last year. And so I think at this point we should recess for about 5 minutes, and then we can reconvene for our work session.
Commissioner Tolis, Chris was able to use his IT magic to get into that other email account that I thought that communication might have gone to, and he was able to confirm that no communications came in after 4:45 either. So the two areas we would typically get them, there were no communications in them.
Well, somebody called me this morning and said they sent something in, but couldn't come on air and wanted it read. And I told them we're going to have to. They already said they sent it in this morning, and we're going to send you another email, but they wanted it read on record. So
The three that I received were that I read were the only ones that we had received.
and that's the same person that had a problem the last time.
Yeah, and I think Chris tried to get a hold of them to try to troubleshoot that problem, but I'm not sure if they ever connected.
All right, it looks like we have everybody with us again. And for those of you who were here last year, this will be a very familiar topic. This is a recommendation that was put forward by the Charter Committee, considering some amendments to change the terms of office for the city commissioners from 3 years to 4 years, and to have our elections on even numbered years. And obviously there are several questions that staff is posing about, the timing of that and whether or not we want to go forward. But I know Olivia was not here last year, and so if Mike and Nancy want to maybe give a little more overview, or just whatever you're going to normally give, that might be helpful. So.
I guess I'm not sure I have a whole lot more to add other than what you said, Mayor, but this, since 2019, the Charter Committee has actually been looking at potential charter amendments, and the 2019 Charter Committee actually recommended that the Center for Applied Research at CMU conduct some independent research into what other cities saw as the pros and cons of popularly electing a mayor versus having the council elect the mayor. And that research was presented to the City Commission, I believe it was in February or March of 2020. And that research pretty much confirmed, I think, what the commission had thought were the pros and cons, but it was a confirmation from those actual cities. So then the matter was referred to the 2020 Charter Committee to make a recommendation to the full commission about what the next step should be. And that 2020 Charter Committee made 3 recommendations, well, actually 4 recommendations. One was to not pursue having a popularly elected mayor at this time because, and I hate to speak for the Charter Committee, but I think their thinking was we could try some other things first, and that could always be considered at a later period of time. But they instead suggested that we do 3 things first, and the first was to change the terms of all city commissioners, as you mentioned, from 3 years to 4 years, to consider changing the term of the mayor and vice mayor, so that would be a 2-year term, and to enact a policy to provide documentation of how items are put on a city commission agenda. That policy was approved last year, so that one is done. And so that leaves the charter amendment issues still out there. And Mike did some additional research on those as far as how to stagger the terms. And then the question became, do you want these on the same election or do you want them on 2 separate elections? And which election would you prefer to have the residents vote on these potential charter amendments? So I think when we brought it in October, the group felt that having some informal discussion about that staggering and timing might be helpful. before you actually vote on whether to move forward with the charter amendments or not. And Commissioner Simon, I guess the important thing to understand with charter amendments is it takes a 3/5 vote of the city commission for a charter amendment to move forward. And once that happens, then the language goes to the governor and the attorney general for review. Once they've reviewed and signed off on the language, it can then be put on the ballot for the voters to vote on. And it just has to pass by a simple majority amongst the voters in that election. So that's how a charter amendment comes to be. So with that, I don't know that I have anything else to add unless anybody has any questions. Or if not, we laid out a few questions for your discussion tonight to decide how to move this forward.
So I guess, are there any questions? That's the kind of the first bullet point. Are there any questions for Mike or Nancy? Okay. And then about that, I guess the next question is really to, determine, do we want to go forward with these amendments, and then the timing of those amendments. So I'll open up the floor for discussion. My personal view is we should move forward with the amendments. I think that the 4-year terms of the city commission and the even-yeared elections allows more cohesion amongst the commission, especially for more long-term planning. And, I know that there's been some criticism that this is, instead of moving for an elected mayor, that this is, sort of sidestepping that issue. And actually, I think in the long term, this puts us more in line with communities who do elect their mayors by popular vote. And so, no, it's not an elected mayor amendment, but it puts us down that road if the commission and the public feel that way down road, because I don't think with 3-year terms and an election every year that we're well suited for that system. And so I'll leave my comments there for now. Commissioner Ronan, you have the floor.
Okay, yeah, I just, if you can turn to the last page, commission assignment. So I don't know if you have it on a machine or not. If you have the document, if you go to the very last page, I don't think CMU did a particularly profound job in terms of their sampling. And, we could go over that and I could explain that. But on the last page, it clearly indicates, if you look at terms of commission for people who have mayors, elected mayors, they're all 4 years. All the commissioners serve 4 years and all the mayors serve 2 years. So every city they sampled, right, had a different structure to their commission. So when you think about electing a mayor, it'd be very hard to think about electing a mayor every year, right? And if we do away with the off-year election, we save $37,000. So the city saves money. We set the commission up in a way that sort of allows for having an elected mayor at some future date, but it's just sort of a small step in the direction. I think that's at least how I was thinking about it at the time. There are no other places that have commissioner, or at least in terms of the sample they use, that have commissioners who serve for 3 years where they're elected every year. So it just be, I'll stop there.
Vice Mayor Perschbacher.
Yeah, I think that was the whole idea. When we were looking at it, we discovered from the Charter Committee that in order to move towards, if the possibility of doing an elected mayor with the city at large, we would have to have these things in place, because it just doesn't make any sense to do a 3-year term with a vote every single year. And like what Commissioner Ronan said, it does make sense that, because we do save money and it has there's a longer time of being able to, right now you get on the commission, and Commissioner Simon, I'm sure you're understanding this now. You get on the commission the first year, you just kind of like figure out what's going on, right? The second year, you're like, okay, I got something. And then the third year, you're running for reelection. If we do 4 years, then we have more time to spend actually doing things. We set it up so that we're saving the city money. And then if the city decides to eventually go to electing a mayor, if that's something that the city goes for, we're already set up to do it.
Mayor, if I could just clarify something in relation to what Commissioner Ronan was just saying, the work that CMU did, since many of you weren't here when we engaged CMU, the Charter Committee outlined for CMU which cities they wanted surveyed. And the Charter Committee decided that based on council manager forms of government who were similar population size or had a university town. So the Charter Committee identified the 18 cities that they wanted CMU to contact. And the primary purpose of the research was to get information on what those cities saw as the pros and cons of how they elected the mayor, so that an independent entity could ask those questions and get some unbiased answers to that as far as what they saw as the pros and cons. So just to clarify what the role of CMU CARS study really was.
Go ahead, Mary.
I appreciate the work of the Charter Committee and the gathering of the data. And I think it's a good thing for us to move forward in this direction.
Mr. Gillis.
I am not in favor of every other year election. In the saving of $48,000, if anything comes up for a millage or school board, I was going to ask you, Ms. Ridley, doesn't the school board run an election every year, or is it every other year?
They are now on every other year. They changed that a couple years back when they went to 6-year terms. So I believe they only have elections in the even numbered years now.
Okay. So give me an idea, if that were to happen, what would constitute a election in a odd year?
It would have to be a special request by an entity to have an election for either some type of millage, a bond vote, a charter amendment, anything an entity wanted to have. There's certain dates of the year that the state has outlined that you can have special elections now. So it could be anything other than elected office.
Okay. I favor members going to the ballot box every year. I think it is a constant reminder of their civic duty and engagement with our local government. So I hate to get into a situation where we are only asking our community members to go to the ballot box every other year. And also with that, I feel that a 4-year commitment for anyone is a little bit asking a little bit too much of their time or too much of a commitment. Most of us have, after the first term, after 3 years, make a decision if we want to stay another term. So that is always an option for any commissioner to keep the ball rolling, as you will, rather than having new commissioners every election year. Most commissioners, if they decided to continue their public service, would stay on for another term. But I know in recruiting people to even run for city commission, it is a hard sell to ask them to commit 3 years, let alone 4 years of the next 4 years as a city commissioner. It's something too far out in the future that they may not be able to commit to for their lifestyle, their work commitments. And it's tough enough to find people to run that are interested in serving for a 3-year term, let alone if we initiated another year of service. So I have my reservations about considering 4-year terms. It is like, I think it's asking too much for someone. I don't think that affects turnover. Like we can't have continuation of commissioners to where they get their feet wet, so to speak. I don't think that has any bearing on 3 versus 4 year terms. I think it's going to be a detriment to getting people convinced or convinced that it could be a commitment for 4 years, because we can see that a lot of people have different changes in their lives for a 4-year commitment. And the last thing I would want is a commissioner not elected by the people and a commissioner that had to be appointed by our city commissioners because someone couldn't fulfill their term. Just to clarify, if I remember correctly, our charter states that if you can't finish a term, the city commission appoints someone and they finish out that term until that election of that commissioner. It's not at the next available election. Am I right, Ms. Ridley?
I'm thinking it depends on the length of their term, Commissioner Gillis.
Okay.
But I don't remember off the top of my head. I was trying to pull out the charter to answer that question for you.
Yeah, I think it's, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I did look this up recently, Lori, and I think it's somewhere along the lines, like if you're not close to the next scheduled election that you are appointed. And I know that's happened in the past. And your point is well taken, I think, about the 4-year term. And it's a concern that I've had as well. You know, it might preclude some people who don't want to make that commitment. But I remember we did look at average term length of people who had served on the commission over the last, I think, several, I can't remember how long, but I know it stretched into early 2000s. And most commissioners were serving somewhere between 4 and 5 years, as it was sort of the average length. And so food for thought. I'll hand it over to Nancy. It looks like she might have an answer.
Yeah, but I did see those averages, and you got to figure there was averages that kind of offset that, like Jim Holton being on there for 12 years and Kathy Ling being on there for 12 years, because I looked at those statistics and I thought, well, that really skewed that up to a 4 or 5 year average when you have people that made their lifetime, you know. So I just wanted, yeah, those statistics were kind of skewed for people that were long-term commissioners.
Yeah, in answer to your question, Commissioner Gillis, the charter says that if the person that is vacating the position has 12 months or fewer left in their term, then the commission appoints somebody to complete the term. But if they have more than 12 months remaining in their unexpired term, that the commission appoints a qualified elector and shall schedule a special election as soon as practical. So it depends on the length of the term, but if it's more than a year, you would have to have a special election.
Thank you for looking that up, Ms. Ridley.
Yep.
I'll hand it over to Commissioner Alsager.
One other thought I had was, other than appreciating the good work and effort that went into this, I do like that it sets us up for in the future, if we want to have a mayor, vice mayor term of 2 years, and to have them elected if we choose that as well.
Commissioner Ronan?
Yeah, I just want to echo Laurie's concern about the skewness of the data. We should probably get a median as opposed to a mean, if we can, something at the 50th percentile, just to look at that. Good point, Laura.
Thanks, George.
We could do that quickly, probably. I can't remember where the numbers are. I don't know if they're in the packet or not, but Commissioner Gillis.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, most of the discussions since I've been on the commission were just for an elected mayor, not for an elected vice mayor. And my thought of it, I always would rather have, and this has been something that I have advocated since in the year 2000, early 2000s. This was way before I even was involved in the political arena. So, but I have always envisioned a mayor selected by the people of Mount Pleasant, and then a vice mayor selected by the sitting city commissioners. And my thought, and I have tried to convince the charter members of last year to consider putting that on the ballot. Not that we might enact that, rather than at least we know the public's wishes and their sentiments, so that we can move forward into creating that calendar year, so that can happen between if they decide for a 4-year term or they decide for a 2-year term for mayor and vice mayor. But I think if we're asking them to come to the polls, we should get it all out in one voting session for everything that might be considered, so we can get a clear look at what the public wants. And I also, and I've said this before, that when we elect a mayor by the people, I think it is it's better suited, because they have to represent all of our community members. They have to reach out and be more, they're going to be the mayor for everyone, both political parties, and not maybe just the party that holds the majority on the city commission. I think it's going to better serve us as a community to have a mayor, because then they will have to actually reach out to all our community members and garner their vote. So I do believe that if we're going to put any ballot language on, we should put in all three, even if we can't enact the mayor-elect until a year where it fits into that that scenario. And I also think that vice mayor and mayor as a 2-year term, I think is somewhat of a long time to have 2 people representing the city. I think it is favorable if you allow other people to have the chance of representing the city, either by election, asking the electors to vote for them, or giving them the chance to bring what they have to offer to the city of Mount Pleasant. So when we're saddling into a 2-year term, what if we didn't know how someone was going to perform or act as a vice mayor or mayor, and then we as a commission decided that we didn't want them to serve for 2 years? You're kind of locked into those two, whoever those two were to be picked, rather than being able to have the option on every year. I think sometimes you can just see that maybe a change of leadership would better serve the community. So thanks for listening.
Commissioner Ronan.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that we went with the data that was provided. There is no city that does that. So, I mean, when you look at the data they collected, when you look at the stuff we looked at, it's clear that sometimes the mayor has 4-year terms. The lowest is 2 years, and all of the commissioners have terms of 4 years. I mean, I think I think there's some reasons for that. I think in terms of learning curves, in terms of making the process of electing a mayor smooth, I'd argue that we just go ahead with this. We put it on the ballot, get it in place, and then continue to look at the idea of a mayor. I mean, I think this might solve some of the problems we're having. I don't know, but I guess I'd argue more for a step down position. We make a move, we put it in the right direction, and eventually, if we can move it in, I guess I'd argue we just go with what we have now. And it's here, let's approve it.
Okay. I guess at this point, I'd like to make sure that we have enough sort of, that there's enough notion on the commission to sort of move forward with the charter amendments. And so I know I have spoken in favor I believe Vice Mayor Perschbacher has spoken in favor, Commissioner Ronan, Commissioner Alsager. And so I would ask, from Commissioner Tolis and Commissioner Simon, just to hear from both of you on what you're thinking. And then we can talk about the timing, I think, after that, whether or not. So. Commissioner Tolis.
I'm in agreement with Commissioner Gillis. I want it all put on the ballot at the same time. Let the people decide on it. Let the voters decide on it. I'm really not for going 4-year term or on commissioners, keeping it at 3, and really not going, for mayor and vice mayor for 2-year terms. Like, it's the history of this town. It's had 1 year and it switches, and I think that's for the better. That's my opinion on it.
Okay, so I just want to clarify your position. So we're talking about the 4-year terms and then the 2-year term of the mayor and vice mayor. And you are, I guess I'm confused because it sounded like you're in support of those if the election of the mayor is also included, but if it's not, then you would not be in favor of those changes.
Well, you're talking about splitting the mayor situation out of this and just going with a 3 to 4-year term and then 2-year term for vice mayor and mayor, and leaving the election question out. I guess it doesn't matter because you got the votes. It's going to wind up being 5-2, so it really doesn't make a difference.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Simon.
Okay, I was actually going to ask a question about that. I'm mostly just learning and listening. I think the concerns make sense, and I think the reasons for this make sense. In terms of the mayor and the vice mayor, switching that to 2 years versus keeping it 1 year, is there anything, not problems, but is there anything now that switching to 2-year terms would resolve? Does that question make sense?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question, but maybe it's just me. I don't know.
So what would the reasons be, or the benefits, I guess, of switching to 2-year terms for the mayor and vice mayor, as opposed to staying with 1?
Sure. I think and George and Amy were on the charter committee as well. And I'm our thinking, and please correct me if I'm mischaracterizing the thinking, but that 2 years guarantees a little more stability in just the leadership of the commission. The every year turnover would be, in one case, I think doesn't make sense if you've got the same commission for 2 years in a row before an election, that it might make more sense to have the mayor and the vice mayor have 2 years to, lead that 2-year term. And I think that's what we saw it as.
Sure. No, I appreciate you answering the question. I'm sorry if it caught you off guard. I see the concern of having the chance to pick a new mayor and vice mayor every year, but also that there's a lot of precedent for having the longer terms, and we're a little behind on that, that they are a bit longer in other areas. I think the stability makes a lot of sense, so I would be for moving that.
Thank you, Commissioner Simon. Commissioner Ronan, did you have? We can't hear you, George.
I think it's a great experiment. I think you're right, Commissioner Simon. It does not, it'd just be an experiment, right? I mean, the goal would be, if this works, then we could elect the mayor every 2 years. We'd be in a cycle to be able to elect the mayor every 2 years. I mean, if we decided after having the mayor and vice mayor serve for 2 years is a horrible thing, then, we wouldn't be going down that road. So I think it is experimental. I think it's a good point. There is no, we could talk about what other people do. We can talk about past history or something, but there's no way to know how it would fit into the community, which is why I'd argue for a gradual. good question. I don't know. I
Yeah.
agree.
George's comment kind of reminds me of some of the results I think we got from the cars, which, you know, there were, I want to say that we didn't get any feedback from the cities that participated in that study that was surprising, right? The cities that had elected mayors felt comfortable in that position, and the cities who had appointed mayors felt comfortable in that position. And there were strengths and weaknesses to both. And there wasn't like, you know, there wasn't like a golden ticket somewhere that said, this system is best, no doubts, you won't regret it, you know? And that's kind of where we, you know, so I think that there's been enough interest over the years to sort of moving in this direction that I think it's safe to say that, you know, if we move in this direction, yeah, there might be some things that we lose, but there are also benefits. And it's really kind of up to us to determine, and ultimately it'll be up to the voters to determine whether or not that's what they want to do. So, Commissioner Gillis?
I just wanted to make the point that we have just had 2 people serve for 2 years, and we didn't have to have a charter amendment for that. So if the commission were seeing that worked, a mayor and a vice mayor, you know, we already have that ability to have 2 years. We just now, if we, you know, if we put it on the ballot and the community members decide on that, we already have that ability to have 2 years for mayor and vice mayor. When we put it on a ballot, if it were to pass, then we no longer have that ability if we didn't like those 2 that were paired up. We'd have to serve with them for another year if it wasn't working.
Yeah. I think the stipulation, like if we had an elected mayor and you got through year 1 and you're like, this guy's a schmuck or this girl's a schmuck, you know, you wouldn't be able to necessarily do much because they'd be, you know, I mean, the year for mayor is 2 years, right? And so you'd kind of be stuck with them either way. And I think if we change the term now, then it makes more sense. I mean, sure, I think we could change the term of office to 4 years and then hold off on the mayor thing. I think that's a possibility,
And I would remind you, part of the concern is if you put both of these on the ballot at the same time, there is the possibility that one of the 4-year terms could not pass and the 2-year terms for mayor and vice mayor could pass. So you would be in a situation where people are elected for 2 years to mayor and vice mayor, but yet you have these odd 3-year terms that have to factor into that. So I think that's part of why we first brought this back to you is, do you want to take that risk of putting them both on the ballot at the same time?
Yeah, I think, and I wanted to declare, I know we've talked about this before, but what is the reason that we can't include it all in one package?
Mike, I'm going to punt that one to you.
Yeah.
Are you saying include both charter amendments in one ballot proposal?
Yeah, would that be possible?
Yeah, I think that's not going to be possible because they deal with 2 separate subjects. So one is the 4-year term and the other is the mayor and vice mayor terms. And like Nancy said, in the memo, that's why we suggested you could have a timing problem if one passes and one doesn't.
Right. Okay. Well, I think, go ahead, George. Okay. You're muted, but I think I get what you're trying to say. To me, it sounds like we have enough support for moving ahead with these charter amendments. Now, I think the question is the timing. My personal feeling is that we want to move ahead with them separately since they can't be together. And obviously the 4-year terms would be is the obvious choice for having that voted on upon first. And then I think the question becomes, when do you want to put it on the ballot? We have obviously an election this year in November. And that's a possibility. Part of me feels I don't want to necessarily punt it off for another year, but I think there's some good reason to say, maybe this should be a bigger election year for the question to be voted upon, but I will leave that up to discussion amongst ourselves. So Commissioner Gillis.
Well, I believe if you're going to be asking the community what they think of a 4-year term, you should be wanting the biggest turnout or the largest population that would show up, and that probably wouldn't be this election, but next year's election, the gubernatorial election, where we would be voting on our Michigan governor, and we would get a good portion of our community, voting community, and then we could get a good idea if this is what they want. I hate to see things put on ballots or when it's not a heavy turnout, such as an August election or an election where there's nothing prominent on the ballot. You get people that seem to, and just why I said before, I'd like people to come to the ballot box every year just to be on the habit of doing their civic duty. But I think it would be better served to get a better parcel of our voting membership and what they think if we put it on a 2022 election cycle. So I agree with you, Will.
Okay. Vice Mayor Perschbacher.
Mr. Homier, if we put that on the 2022, the 4-year election, on the 2022 ballot, how would that logistically work out when it would start? It wouldn't start for like 2 years then, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and relook at the graph. The reason why we put it in graphical form to begin with is because it gets so confusing. So
Yeah.
rather than answer that off the cuff, then we may have to adjust the timing of that graph to determine when those changes would take effect. It may not require a change at all, but I'd want to take the opportunity to review it and see how the timing works out.
Yeah, because at this November election, there are 3 of us up for re-election if we choose to run. So there'd already be something on the ballot. And if we put this on the ballot now, then we already know when it would start for the next election.
Yeah, but if you look at the graph in the memo, right, it anticipates those positions that are ending in 2021 will remain a 3-year term with the election.
Yes.
Right, so that it goes through December of 2024.
Yeah.
So the question then will be the timing. If there's a charter amendment in 2022, then that, I don't know that that's going to have an effect with the election at the end of that term, but I'd have to take a look at it.
Yeah.
We went round and round about the graph because it gets a little confusing once you start moving those terms around.
Oh yeah. I can definitely appreciate the work put into that.
So I guess like I did previously, I'd like to maybe if everyone could kind of chip in their comment or their feelings about either splitting up that vote and the timing, that would be helpful so we can move forward.
I thought we already decided it wouldn't be beneficial or it wouldn't be prudent to have both of those issues on one ballot.
Yeah,
Just heard.
Um,
And that we should be moving with the 4-year question first.
yeah, I think,
what
I
I
mean,
heard?
that's, I think, the strong recommendation from Mike, and I feel very confident about that. And so I just want to make sure that everyone kind of agrees with that, and also the timing about either 2021 or 2022. I think it makes sense to do 2022, just because if we're asking people to vote for commissioners on, even election years, it makes sense to have this change probably voted on then for, makes a lot of sense. So, Mary, go ahead.
Well, I'm on page 5 of the work session topic mail that we got. And I think it does make sense for the vote to be in 2022, because that would be the first time that a group would be elected for 4 years.
No, I think I think the graph that's there is from if we had voted on it earlier.
Oh, that you couldn't vote to have it and have it at the same time?
Right. Yeah. You got to know what the voters choose and then move forward, I think.
Oh, darn.
Mike,
Well, it could just get flipped then.
Yeah, I mean, it'll just be moving that timeline a little forward.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I get it.
Okay. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that if you look at that graph, that's where the change in the timing is going to occur. That those positions that are ending in 2022, then that is supposed to be an election, presuming it had changed, to a 4-year term beginning January 1st, 2023. So that's where the timing adjustment's going to have to occur if you put it off until 2022.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Commissioner Ronan? You're muted, George. Sorry. I can't hear you.
I'm sort of old, but I'd like to see it implemented before I die. So I guess I'd probably sort of argue for 2021, but I get the numbers thing. I mean, I don't know. I could go either way, but I think it's going to be a long time, right? Either way, right? So I guess I have a mild preference for 2021, just to stop the process, so that if we wanted to have a mayor, we'd be able to do it in a reasonable time frame. But I could go with 2022 as well.
Okay. Olivia, what are you thinking?
To be honest, right now, I'm just more listening. I don't really have a strong preference either way, so I'd rather wait to get more information than choose a side.
Okay.
Sorry.
Maybe.
I'd prefer that it happened this year, but if the majority wants to go to 2022, I guess that's fine. I just think that we've keep putting this further and further down the road. And the only way we're going to get to a possibility of thinking about an elected mayor is putting this stuff into place. So, this has to be into place before we even think about that. But whatever the majority is at this point is fine.
Okay. And Mary, I just want to affirm what was your opinion on the timing.
Well, I was thinking that Lori's argument about having a bigger electorate in 2022 makes a lot of sense, but I was being a little silly thinking that it would change at the same time it was being voted on.
Okay.
So yeah, 2022.
Okay. And Pete, did you want to?
2022.
Okay. All right. So I would ask Mike and Nancy, do you have any further, do you need further information from the commission? Because I feel like we have a,
Let me make sure that I can summarize where I think you are as far as the general direction you're giving us. I think the general direction we're hearing is that you would like to move forward first with just the ballot proposal to change to 4-year terms. You would like that election to be in 2022. And we need to relook at that phasing in chart to see how what that looks like then because of that. And then we also need to figure out when you would take action on that so that it would be queued up for the November 2022 election. So that when you say 2022, I'm assuming you mean November of 2022. So we would have to find the proper timing so that you would approve that at the proper time so it lands on that November 2022 election. So we'll have to look at the calendars to figure out when that is.
okay.
Is that an accurate summary of what you're looking for? And then Mike and I can figure out how to get you there.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm hearing. Looks like I've seen a lot of head nodding. So,
Mike, do you have any other questions that we need to know in order to figure out how to get there?
Mike, we can't hear you. Sorry.
No, I think we're just going to have to go through that timing. And I really think it's likely going to involve the 2 current positions held by Commissioner Ronan and Alsager, and to determine when, because it could be a 3-year term commencing 2023 through 25, and then another 3-year term from 26, 7, and 8. So you would have 26, 27, and 28, and then, oh no, that's not going to work out either.
Yeah, I think we just need to spend some time on it, Mike.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a way to make it work. We just can't come up with it on the fly.
Yeah.
Multiples of 3 and 2.
In 2 groups rather than 3. So, yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, I think at this point it's safe to say that we are done for the evening, and I'd just like to thank them for their work tonight. Commissioner Tolis, get your hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Mike for all the expedited work he did on the opinions and the resolution.
Okay. All right. Well, I believe at 9:39, stand adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Thank
Good night.
you.